It's absolutely horrible that we have to do this decade after decade for how long, and this is still going on and just getting worse. I thank you for being here. I was born and raised in Israel. I was a soldier in the Israeli army when Israel invaded Lebanon for the first time. In September 1982, the Israeli military stood by while the Lebanese Christian militias massacred the population of the Sabra and Shatila refugee camps. My unit was responsible for coordinating the training and supply of the Christian militia who committed the massacre. This implicates me as well. That massacre was part of the larger context of the slow genocide that Israel has been committing against the Palestinian people since 1948. Like all Israeli Jews, I was brainwashed to believe that we were always the good guys and that everyone, including the Palestinians, hated us because we were Jews and that they were all anti-Semites. I was brainwashed to believe that we were always victims and that we never did anything wrong. It took 10 years after moving to Australia for me to learn the truth about Israel's history and what Zionism really is. It was then that I met Palestinians as equals for the first time in my life. I renounced my Israeli citizenship in 2001 in protest. Israel has an exceptionalism complex. It wants to be above the law and outside of it. Israel thinks it deserves special treatment because Jews were persecuted throughout history. But Israel is not the Jews, and neither does it speak for all Jews. For all the confused out there, I'm not saying any of you are, but just in case somebody's listening, for all the confused out there is nothing to be confused about. Israel is just another genocidal settler colonial state, the next in a long line of genocidal colonialists. Settler colonialism is a home invasion. Excuse me a second. A powerful invader takes over someone else's home and replaces them with their own people. Israel is a product of the Zionist movement that was formed in Europe in the late 1880s, long before the Holocaust, when colonialism and its crimes were normal, when the theft of land and resources was acceptable. It was a time when indigenous people were not considered even human, and abusing, exploiting, and killing them was not only acceptable, but seen as virtuous. It was also a time when rebellions and resistance were labeled as terrorism and were brutally crushed. In that context, the Zionists thought it was a perfectly good idea to create an exclusively Jewish state, even if it came at the expense of the indigenous people of Palestine. In 1948, the Zionist leadership and what was to become the Israeli military expelled 750,000 Palestinians, committed gang rapes and massacres, and destroyed more than 500 Palestinian towns and villages. The unilaterally declared Israeli state took over everything it did not raze to the ground. Israel had no intention of complying with UN Resolution 194 that called for the return of the refugees. Removing as many Palestinians as possible and emptying the land was always the Zionist intention. Back in 1948, when the world was watching, Israel could not finish the job of emptying the country of its non-Jewish indigenous people. The refugees of 1948, those 750,000 people who were expelled and ethnically cleansed, ended up in Gaza, in the West Bank, and in refugees camps like Sabra and Shatila in Lebanon, in Syria and elsewhere in the Middle East. In 1967, Israel initiated an expansionist war because it wanted more land and more resources for its growing Jewish state and population. It invaded Gaza and the West Bank, and the 1948 refugees found themselves under Israeli military occupation and control. When I was a child, we were taught that we unified Jerusalem and that war was a heroic act. Many songs were sung about it. To this day, Israelis still think that that war was a war of self-defense. Everyone talks about the occupation, but that occupation in 1967 was only one piece in the larger puzzle of settler colonialism. Israel has always worked to get rid of the Palestinians in every means possible. So far, it has been an incremental genocide, a slow genocide, as Dr. Ilan Pape calls it. But Israel has always looked for an opportunity to finish the Palestinian problem once and for all. The so-called two-state solution and the signing of the ridiculous Oslo Accords were never real. They were a ruse to stall, draw the world off the scent of Israel's real intentions, and secure military, financial, and political support for Israel. The Palestinians living under Israel's ever-tightening control and deepening abuse have always known that they were on borrowed time. Israel and the Western world have been calling Palestinian resistance terrorism. Israel is not original. All colonial and settler colonial powers have always labeled resistance as terrorism. There is no symmetry between settler colonialists and their victims. There is no symmetry between Israel and the Palestinian people. Israel is the settler colonizer and the Palestinians are its victims. Over the past 75 years, Israel has acted deliberately and persistently to complete the settler colonial project. Generations of Palestinians have been suffering under this torture. Israeli Jews believe that they will not be safe until every last Palestinian is gone. They re-elected Netanyahu, a psychopathic narcissist, criminal, because they believe that he's the only one who has what it takes to finish the job, and he's doing it. You cannot negotiate with a vicious, inhumane, racist regime that does not want you there. The only way is to resist. Resistance always looks ugly because settler colonialism and colonialism are always ugly. As every victim of domestic abuse will tell you, there are no good choices if you are trapped in a powerful system that is determined to control and ultimately destroy you. Whatever you do, you lose. Does Israel and the rest of the world seriously expect the Palestinians to do nothing and wait to be led like sheep to the slaughter? The answer is yes. This is precisely what Israel wants and what its media reflect. They want the Palestinians to die, to disappear quietly into the night until everyone has forgotten about them. And Jewish Israeli can live happily ever after in their exclusively Jewish home. Israel is determined to remove every last Palestinian from historic Palestine in every means possible. The rest of the world is colluding and helping them commit this genocide. Pleading with a single-minded genocidal state is pointless. A ceasefire will not happen unless someone forces Israel into it. Only strong economic sanctions and a military embargo carry some hope of forcing Israel to stop its genocidal frenzy. Rishi Sunak, Keir Starmer, and every politician who does not renounce their party's policy about Palestine, your hands are covered in Palestinian blood. You are directly complicit in the wholesale removal and extermination of an entire people. There is no coming back from this. I know you know the truth about Israel, but you support it anyway. You are showing us who you really are. You are dangerous and cowardly people who lack empathy and humanity, and we cannot trust you to lead us. Despite you, we, the people, will not be forgetting the Palestinian people. They are us, and we are them. We will not keep our mouths shut while they are being exterminated. It is time for any remaining decent politician to show courage and compassion and do the right thing. It is not enough to call for a ceasefire. Who can force Israel to stop the bombing? I call for an immediate political and economic boycott and an arms embargo against Israel. Thank you for listening.